I'm so grateful and honored to be here. And it's very interesting how coming back to circle in full circle. I haven't been here in a few years. And upon reflecting upon what I wanted to speak about today, I was just like, this is the most perfect moment to share my journey. When I first came to Circle, I remember coming into the podium and having concerns about if I was going to pass out, because at that time I was in the peak of one of my conditions. I was diagnosed with dysautonomia and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So basically, my autonomic nervous system went haywire. I went from a fiercely independent military veteran to all of a sudden a light switch happening, and now being codependent on people to feed me, bathe me, help me with picking this glass I wouldn't have been able to pick up alone. And all of my body kind of just I became nonverbal. I was just sick. I was completely sick, and I would be bedridden. So I remember standing at that podium and asking the universe that day, please don't let me pass out, because I had about a 10-minute limit where I could stand before my blood pressure would drop. And it's been a few years now, and I'm so happy to share this journey with you all right now. And I hope that it brings you inspiration. So Spirit started to speak to me in 2014 when I was at the peak of my condition. And I remember standing at Circle and saying how this led me to meeting my first angels, which was Angel Chamuel and Angel Rafael. Within them speaking to me, they asked me to go teach. And I said, angels, I can't teach because I do not know anything. But they asked me to meet people at the park. And so I would have someone drive me to the park and walk me to the nearest tree closest to the street so that I could make it there. And we talked about mandalas. Very quickly after that, Spirit said, okay, now there's more for you. And these synchronicities started to come up where I learned about Reiki. And Reiki was definitely a pivotal foundational pillar in my life. And they said, go open a wellness center. And some of you may know me from How Awareness Center in Philadelphia. And I did, and I opened with $5 in my pocket. But that didn't stop what I was going through. It didn't stop the amount of pain. I had fibromyalgia, I had IBS, I had neuropathy. So I was in a lot of physically excruciating pain where I would even push people away from embracing me because I could not bear the sense of touch. So through Reiki session after Reiki session and week after week of listening to Spirit, I went on my first journey. Saint Germain came to me in a vision, and I didn't know who he was. I was referring to him as the purple eyes man. And he asked me to go to Mount Shasta. And this was my first pilgrimage. And you will hear me refer to these lovingly as my side quests. So this was my first side quest, going to Shasta. There, I actually wound up getting an activation. Now, this activation came to me very somatically. So when I got to physically to Shasta, what happened was I felt electricity surge through my body and burn every single nerve ending. And it was excruciating. I didn't know what this was at the time. And recently I've made a trip to Texas, in which I stayed with some Apache Indians. And the shaman there was explaining to me how he was hit by lightning. And I said, wow, your story sounds like mine. But the day that when I felt the electricity move through me, it came from the ground. There was nothing in the sky. And he looked at me in my face and he said, because lightning doesn't form in the sky, it forms on the ground. And so even though this was years ago, a new part of my journey was revealed to me 6 years later, learning that, wow, this was actually lightning that surged through my body, because it dropped me. Every single muscle in my body tensed and it dropped me. That trip led me to walking 7 hours when I couldn't walk 3 minutes from my house. I got to the top of the mountain feeling completely drunk. And by the time I got back down, it was dark and I could no longer see the path. When I asked Spirit for help in that moment to get me out of the forest that I've never been, the pine needles in Mount Shasta illuminated in a neon color. This neon color path led me all the way out and back to safety. Coming back home, I was able to walk a little more. We fast forwarded a few years later, and I'm being called to action again. I'm being asked to go to Omega and go see John of God. And some of you may know of him, to go heal with the entities. And a little bit in my non-receptivity, because I am human, and I feel like when we go through something so dense and so difficult, we can become a little resistant to these claims of instantaneous healing. But even with that being said, something inside of me inherently knew, wait, there's something more to this. Because I drove with my partner at the time to Omega, a few hours away. And I met with this group of beautiful people. And for about 20 seconds, I got into this space. They did like a one Hail Mary, and then they kind of just shuffled us off. And I was like, what? This makes zero sense how this could be so quick. I'm watching all these people come in, and now it's my turn. And I'm like, but how is anything happening in those few seconds? But we have to understand that the things that are happening within the unseen are not actually happening in a few seconds, because we are multidimensional beings. We have these, not just this chakra system, but we actually have the ability to connect to our past, to our present, and to other dimensions simultaneously. This is all in one circle, no pun intended, talking at a circle. Okay, so everything's actually happening at the same time, not in the past and not in the future, but all together. And when I went into that space, I had this experience, a monumental experience, and I sat down for the one Hail Mary, and I saw Bonaparte, I forget his first name, but I saw this entity come into my third eye, and somatically, very physically, I felt a scalpel cut me open from here to here, divide my cranium, and come into my brain and start rewiring inside of my physical brain. And I felt it. I almost screamed in pain because it was very real. It was very physical for me. We get shuffled out. I'm kind of like, what just happened? And people would ask me time and time again, but what did you actually gain from that exact moment? And I want to say that a lot of our rewards don't come from the exact moment. Because when we're seeking for something, we're seeking for immediate validation, which takes away the faith. These rewards are already placed inside of our path. So what's happening to us is that we're meeting the reward emotionally. And then basically what we're doing is we're taking the steps back from the reward moment to the present moment. And then going forward into that, knowing that it is for us. But what was the result of that was it gave me the confidence to know that there was something beyond what I had experienced in that moment. And it gave me the curiosity to go, there's something within this. A few weeks later, I actually broke out in hives from that whole experience. And I remember being able to stand a little longer after that. The following year, I wound up going to Brazil. And I had gotten the download from my mom and my brother. He's not going to be doing this healing much longer. And I gave a timeline, which with the light of things that just occurred, actually wound up being factual. So we actually went to Brazil, where while I got my surgery, every single bone in my body was broken, and I felt it. It was extremely painful, but I trusted. And some of you might think, well, healing is soft and gentle and loving, but that's not everybody's experience. And it wasn't mine. And this isn't to scare anyone, but to understand that when sometimes really hard work takes really hard work. And that is my journey. And while I was there, I could feel the neuropathy, the nerve endings being restructured. I could feel instantly a wrist that I couldn't even bend suddenly break and be repaired. And I could feel screws, even though they were all spiritual, placed into my bones to repair damaged hands and wrists. So I leave this place, and I now am able to walk a little more. I'm able to Sing and stand, that was something I couldn't do. If I were to laugh and stand, I would drop because my blood pressure would fall. So I wasn't able to do those two things. I was then able to start picking up a glass by myself, trusting these little side quests. Spirit now asked me, okay, we're giving you a big one. Because I'm like, Spirit, I am so ready. I'm so ready for this next thing. And mind you, I'm still doing How Awareness Center. I'm still showing up every week. I'm doing 26 a month, 26 events a month. And even though I'm still very sick at this point, that love, that understanding, that faith that I had inside of myself, it was like, don't let what the immediate present moment is, the way that looks to you, to deter you from getting yourself and collecting yourself from that future moment you experienced. Don't let yourself get sidetracked, because that knowing inside, that experience inside of that emotional state, that love, that understanding that I felt, even though I wasn't there, but I knew that it existed and that I was just basically working my way back from that moment. I knew that moment existed. So I was never wavered. I was never deterred. So when I would do my work and I was sick, if I could take an extra breath that day, I was grateful for it. If I could stand 10 more seconds that day, I was grateful for it. If I could lift my cup more than once that day, I was grateful for it. And these little micro gratitudes, and I say them because gratitude is never micro, but in the moment, these are these little micro shifts that we have to make in order to get to that bigger picture, the longer journey of endurance, the longer journey of strength. Because we are here in this journey, and sometimes it's not apparent, but if we allow that trust to come into us, that one extra step that we give is monumental. It's imperative. It is everything, because we're giving of our all. We're giving of ourselves. On year 6 of How Awareness Center, Spirit had asked me to close my center down. And I was like, Spirit, but why? We're doing such good work. We're expanding at such an accelerated rate. Everyone's learning so much. And in December, Chuhiro Hayashi, one of the Reiki masters, came to me in the vision as I was attuning one of my last masters. And he said to me, thank you for fulfilling your promise. Thank you for fulfilling your agreement. Because my original agreement was, when I was bedridden in my awakening, in the beginning of my awakening, I said, if you teach me how to heal myself, I promise I would teach as many people that my voice can reach. I would teach as many people who are willing to learn from me. And he said, but now it's time for you to do something else, something bigger, a larger reach. So I didn't know why we were closing, but come 2020, he said March, come 2020, the week that my lease was up to be renewed for the year, COVID hit. And I recognized, I said, oh, this is why I was asked to close. So they started to gear me toward TV. And I said, Spirit, I'm the least technically savvy person there is to do TV. I'm terrible at emails. I don't even know how to copy and paste. How could I be the one to ask this? But again, I sat in front of that computer and I remember breaking down and crying because I felt like this mission was so big. And suddenly this information just flowed through me. I surrendered to that state. Now, 3 seasons later, Divine Encounters has won awards, and we are the example show for the entire network of E360 TV, over the top television. They use my show as a template for other shows. The person with no technical savvy. In this journey, Spirit said, your reach is gonna go global. There's an important message here. And I started to get excited about this because now healing was coming through entertainment. Healing was coming through fun, curiosity, joy, and adventure. And I was able to put creativity in there and reach people I couldn't reach before, reach ages that I couldn't reach before, but it wasn't done. Now, I still really needed to get healthier. Spirit, if you need me to do this task, and it is to get bigger, I really need to be able to take a shower, not have my blood pressure drop, and have a full day. So Padre Pio steps in here, and he starts to come to me for about 2 years, talking to me. And he gave me on Easter 2 years ago, he gave me a Bible verse, and this might be incorrect, but I think it was Corinthians 9:17. And this isn't exact, but it was something like, when you are the steward of what you have already done in the past, it is the reward. The work is the reward. But if you do it, but you're going to have to do it either way, voluntarily or not voluntarily. But if you do it voluntarily, the work is the reward. And he asked me to come to Italy. And I said, that's so far, Spirit. I don't think my body could physically take that. Fast forward to last October 2021. I make this huge trip to Europe. It was, as a matter of fact, it blew my mind I did 3 countries, 14 cities by myself. The person who couldn't go from here to the front door without assistance. The person who cognitively sometimes would not remember her name, or had to walk out of a store because I don't remember why I was in a store to begin with. And so I made this journey trusting in faith that I had to go see Padre Pio. And I was asked to go take communion at their church. And mind you, I'm not religious, but I am obedient to Spirit and to what the medicine is for my specific path. And with that being said, I don't judge any medicines for anybody else's path, because that is your walk. I don't know what your karma is. I don't know what you're here to fulfill. So we each have to be graceful in that when we see people doing things that are not in par to our standards. Because I've been chastised for the standards that Spirit has given me by man, but man does not place into your heart the promises or the whispers of your journey. Spirit does. And when we fall into the trap of other people convincing us into or out of something that we know for ourselves, we're not being authentic to our path. So I hope you take that with you today. I get to Italy, I have no internet, and Spirit always places people in your path. And I just so happened to run into someone who spoke enough English. I got to the Padre Pio church. And when I got there, they had this huge celebration. And if someone can tell me how much time I have left, that'd be great. There was this huge celebration, and Spirit had told me, come on this exact day, September 22nd.
About 5 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. Little did I know that was actually his feast day. How did I arrive to his feast day, the biggest celebration for Padre Pio, without even knowing it? However, I didn't have a ticket to get in, and I wept. I said, I came all the way across the world and I can't even see you on your feast day. That night, I was woken up by the most beautiful Italian voice. And I understood. He said, I asked you to come for communion. You will do what I asked. The next day I go to the church, I take communion. And when I ate that bread, it felt like the promise of everything that I could ever desire, want, needs, fulfillment, thrive with was being placed into my heart, that I would give myself those things. It was my reward for being obedient, for listening to Spirit. I come home and I take this information with me. And I'm walking my dog now for a long time. And I'm like, wow, the sky is so beautiful. And I hear Padre Pio, run. He says, run. And I'm like, what? I can't run. I'm going to collapse if I run. Run. I dropped my dog's leash and I ran. I ran 2 miles without stopping, as if I was on wings floating. My heart that is accelerating 30% more than a normal heart. It wasn't excruciating. There was no pain. I've been running 5 days a week since then. The doctor said had only a 25% chance to ever get up and be healthy ever again. Your rewards are coming, just not in the timeline you expect. Be patient, be graceful, be obedient to what you hear in your soul, what speaks to your spirit. But most importantly, know that you have the ability to fulfill all your desires, to thrive. And I'm doing that right now. I drove 10 hours. A person who hasn't driven in 9 years, I drove 10 hours to Carolina right now in a 20-year-old car, fulfilling the message from Spirit to do production, to keep doing the work. Do the work and the rewards will follow. Just trust it, because it's already imprinted in you. You're just working your way back. Thank you.